My daughter-in-law called me adorably forgetful in front of her entire family. My son didn't defend me, he just laughed and passed the potatoes. I excused myself, walked to the coat closet and took out the envelope. Thick cardstock, legal seal, no apology inside. When I placed it beside her cranberry sauce, the room went silent. That was the last holiday I spent at their table, and the first day they lost the house. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. She passed the salad bowl with one hand and a backhanded comment with the other. The salad fork trembled slightly in Evelyn's right hand, not from age, but restraint. She was seated near the end of her son Kyle's long oak dining table, its surface decorated with an autumn-themed runner, flickering candles, and hand-painted place cards. All curated by Monica, of course. Evelyn's name was misspelled, just a missing E, but she noticed. She also noticed the way Monica's voice carried when she spoke across the table to her cousin. We just try not to let Mom get too overwhelmed, you know, at her age. Her smile was wide, sweet, performative. The fork slipped slightly in Evelyn's grip, scraping the edge of the ceramic plate. Laughter rippled around the table, polite, effortless. No one looked toward Evelyn, not even Kyle, who took a long sip of his wine and kept his eyes locked on his plate. Monica wasn't done. She forgets things, but we manage. Don't we, hun? She added, reaching over to squeeze Kyle's arm like it was part of a well-rehearsed skit. Bless her heart. Evelyn cleared her throat, pushing her napkin slowly into her lap. She let her expression remain neutral, neither warm nor wounded, just blank. No one noticed when she stood, or if they did, no one acknowledged it. I'm just going to the restroom, she said quietly, more to the air than to the room. She passed the buffet where she once proudly displayed her ceramic gravy boat, now replaced with a modern black server tray Monica picked from a Pinterest board. She passed the framed family photo Monica had cropped and reprinted, Evelyn's corner now awkwardly cut off, like she was leaning too far out of frame to matter. Inside the bathroom, Evelyn locked the door behind her. The space was overly fragrant. Monica's obsession with essential oils meant every corner smelled like artificial citrus and eucalyptus. Evelyn turned the faucet on to drown out the sound of her own breathing. She pulled out her phone from her purse and opened her House Legal folder. Folder, Documents, 2019 Agreement.pdf, then Screenshot Receipts. March 2020, Saved Voicemails. Her finger hovered over a voice memo she hadn't replayed in months, the one where Monica's voice crackled through the speaker, sugary but firm. Of course she can move in, but there have to be limits. Kyle and I can't be her forever plan. Evelyn hit pause before it finished. She leaned over the sink and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Light wrinkles framed her eyes, but they were sharp, not soft. Her lips were pressed into a line so thin it disappeared entirely. She had helped them buy this house. $85,000 wired from her retirement fund, with Kyle's promise that she'd always have space here. Permanent in-law suite, they'd said. Part of the family, they'd said. She was the reason Monica got to show off her open-concept kitchen and dual vanities to visiting cousins who cooed over the place like it was a magazine spread. But tonight, Evelyn hadn't even been asked to bring a dish. She turned off the faucet, dried her hands slowly, then touched up her lipstick with a steady hand. When she stepped back into the dining room, the cranberry sauce was being passed around. Monica was mid-story about her spin class and how people over 60 shouldn't be lifting kettlebells. Evelyn sat back down, folded her napkin neatly, and said nothing. But her silence was not empty. That night, long after Monica's laughter faded down the hall, Evelyn sat at her small writing desk tucked into the corner of her suite. The bedroom door was locked, the light dim. She opened her laptop and clicked open a blank message. To Judith Langston, Esquire. Subject, proceed. She typed just 5 words into the body of the email. It's time. Let's go forward with the letter. She hit send. That night, she texts her lawyer. It's time. Let's go forward with the letter. They wanted my name on the down payment, not on the guest list. It had started with a desperate phone call on a Wednesday morning in 2019. Evelyn had been finishing her crossword and sipping lukewarm tea when Kyle's name lit up her phone screen. His voice had cracked before she even said hello. "Mom, the deal's about to fall through. We're short. The sellers won't budge." Monica got on next. Smooth, persuasive. "It's just a timing issue with our loan approval. We're so close, Evelyn. If we had just a little help, we could secure it today." Evelyn had paused for only a breath. "How much?" "85, Monica said, crisp and without apology. "We'll write you in. We'll make the in-law suite permanent. Lifetime access. No strings. Your family." Family. That word had landed soft back then. By Friday, the wire transfer was complete. $85,000 from Evelyn's IRA cashed out and pushed into the down payment on the charming 2-story home with the wraparound porch and freshly painted shutters. Monica called it transitional farmhouse. Kyle called it their forever home. Evelyn called it an investment. The paperwork had followed shortly after. Evelyn's name went on the deed, not as a co-signer, but as a co-owner. The arrangement was clear. She'd have a private suite downstairs, and they'd share main areas as needed. Monica even baked a loaf of banana bread the day Evelyn moved in. "You're not a guest," she'd said. "This is your home, too." But time wore down intentions like wind on stone. At first, it was the little things. Evelyn's choice of curtains replaced with brighter panels. Her books shifted to the basement shelves. Then it was guest lists she never saw. Dinners she wasn't invited to. HOA meetings where her vote never seemed to count. Monica had a phrase for everything. "Oh, I thought I texted you." "Oh, we just needed a fast decision." "Oh, this is more our aesthetic." The most recent change was the worst. Evelyn's name removed from the neighborhood email chain after Monica told the community manager she was just staying with us temporarily. Evelyn didn't argue. She documented every receipt she had from the 2019 down payment, every screenshot of texts referencing your share of the house, every file labeled and sorted into digital folders, property, ownership, contributions. She had even taken photos of her mail, bills addressed jointly to her and Kyle. Water, gas, even the property tax breakdown. All of it proof that she wasn't just passing through. She was rooted here, legally. But Monica treated her like furniture, in the way, politely tolerated, and Kyle, her once affectionate mama's boy Kyle, looked away more often than not. Last month, Evelyn had stood at the kitchen island while Monica explained that the backyard garden would be better utilized as a patio with a fire pit. Evelyn had smiled politely and nodded. She'd spent 2 years tending that soil, her soil, and now it was being buried under gravel and string lights. "You understand, right?" Monica had said. "You're always so flexible." Evelyn had nodded again. But that night, she'd added a folder to her desktop. Timeline. Intent to partition. She wasn't sure when she'd use it, but she knew she would. And then came the voice memo. Evelyn was folding laundry in her room when her phone buzzed. A message from Monica, likely meant for her cousin. Evelyn hit play before she even thought to check the recipient. "She's sweet, but she's not entitled to live here forever. I mean, come on. She paid a portion, but that was like 100 years ago. We've built the life. Not her." Evelyn paused, the sock she'd been folding frozen in her hands. Her heart didn't race, her breathing didn't change. She just listened again, and this time, she saved the file. Monica sends a voice memo. "She's sweet, but she's not entitled to live here forever." Her mother's portrait went up in the entryway. Mine went into storage. The first thing Evelyn noticed was the scent. Pine cleaner. New paint. Vanilla from the lit candle on the console table that hadn't been there the day before. The air in the downstairs hallway felt colder than usual, not from the thermostat, but from the chill of change. Her footsteps echoed on hardwood that used to be softened by her antique runner, gone now, replaced by a sleek gray rug with a geometric pattern that screamed Monica. At the base of the stairs, a new portrait hung. Framed in gold, smiling stiffly, was Monica's mother, hair set, pearls gleaming. Evelyn stood still, staring up at it, her pulse threading slowly in her ears. She turned and walked into the living room. Tom's bookshelf, Mahogany, scuffed from their old house in Pasadena, was gone. In its place stood a white open-backed shelving unit, dotted with fake succulents and curated hardcovers that had never been read. The throw pillows were new. So was the Gather sign nailed above the fireplace, crooked by less than an inch. Everywhere Evelyn looked, something had changed. Something that had once been hers was no longer welcome. She moved to the hallway, her eyes scanning the family gallery wall. 8 frames. Kyle's graduation, Monica and Kyle's wedding, a photo of Monica's niece in a pumpkin patch, one of the couple posing in front of the house with a "sold" sign. Evelyn stared at the last one for a long beat. It had once included her. She remembered standing beside them that day, holding a small bouquet Monica had insisted they pose with. Now the photo was cropped, her left. Hand, barely visible on Kyle's elbow, the only remaining proof she'd been there. The cut was clean. She leaned closer and saw the words printed neatly beneath it on matte paper. Our home, our story. Evelyn's throat tightened. She felt it rising, but she swallowed it down, steadying herself. Instead, she pulled her phone from her cardigan pocket and opened the camera. Click, the photo. Click, the shelf. Click, the entryway. Evidence, always evidence. Down the hall, a framed quote hung above the light switch, printed in swirling script. Build your own life. No one owes you space. The audacity nearly made her laugh. She turned into the kitchen and found Monica on the phone, barefoot, twirling her hair around one finger while stirring a pot of something fragrant on the stove. Her voice was low and chatty, tinged with pride. "No, she's still here," Monica said, pausing with a chuckle. "But honestly, it's more of a courtesy at this point. She doesn't even pay rent. I mean, come on." Evelyn stood just beyond the archway, her presence unnoticed. Her jaw didn't clench. She didn't march in or correct her. She simply pulled up her notes app and typed, "May 6th, overheard Monica call me a courtesy. She doesn't even pay rent." Screenshot quote, photo of framed print above hallway, attached to file 03, verbal dismissals. The walls felt tighter than they had that morning. Maybe it was the new paint. Maybe it was the fact that she could no longer see one object that bore her history, her scent, her story, her say. But Evelyn didn't go back to her suite. She walked calmly upstairs, opened her laptop, and inserted her flash drive. File, property, active, evidence compilation, phase 2. She clicked open her document labeled Ownership Trail, then opened the email from her lawyer, Ms. Dahlman. The subject line still sat bold at the top of her inbox, Final Draft, Ownership Rights Letter for signature. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. A call. Evelyn answered with a calm hello. "Ms. Monroe," her attorney said, her tone brisk but warm. "We're ready. The certified ownership letter is signed, sealed, and couriered to you by morning. It's official." Evelyn closed her eyes. She could still smell the candle Monica had lit downstairs. Sweet, artificial vanilla. She let it fade. Her lawyer calls. "We're ready with the certified ownership letter." She gave her mother the guest room. "I got the air mattress." The mattress hissed beneath her with every breath she took, its vinyl skin cold against her shoulder blades. Each movement was met with a sharp crinkle, a reminder that this was temporary, like a packing box or a hospital cot. The beige air mattress sat crooked across the living room floor, inches from the cold baseboard heater and just beneath a vent that rattled whenever the HVAC kicked on. Evelyn blinked up at the ceiling, then turned her head toward the dim blue glow of the oven clock in the kitchen, 2:17 a.m. She reached under the scratchy fleece blanket and adjusted the pillow Monica had tossed down earlier that evening. It was one of the decorative ones from the upstairs love seat, stitched, stiff, and flat as paper, just for a few nights. That's what Monica had said, right before cheerfully announcing that her mother, Lorraine, would be so much more comfortable in an actual bed while visiting from Napa. Evelyn's room, her room, had a bathroom ensuite and a queen mattress with orthopedic memory foam. It was, as Monica explained with a laugh, the logical choice. Evelyn had nodded, slow and stunned, while Monica handed her a neatly folded set of twin sheets and a half-inflated mattress like a consolation prize. Kyle had offered a vague, uncomfortable, "Thanks for being flexible, Mom," before disappearing into the garage. The pain in her back now was not surprising. It radiated from the base of her spine and spread like the bruising ache of regret. Still, she didn't make a sound. Not when the spring coil inside the floor lamp snapped loudly. Not when she heard soft giggling from the upstairs landing, and not when Monica's unmistakable voice floated down the stairwell. "She'll manage. She always does." Evelyn sat up slowly, wincing. The blanket fell to her lap. The cold found her bones. She reached for her slippers, pulled on her robe, and padded across the hardwood. Outside, the porch was damp from morning dew, but the air was clear and unburdened. She sat on the bench she had stained herself 3 summers ago, the one Monica had nearly thrown out last fall for curb appeal. She pulled out her phone. Her hands trembled, not from anger, but something deeper, something long fermented. She tapped the health app, opened her emergency contact list, and stared at the top name, Monica Caldwell. She paused, thumb hovering. Then she pressed remove contact and confirmed twice. The screen blinked. The name vanished. Evelyn let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. It left her like steam from a kettle, silent and hoe. The sun was just starting to creep behind the hedges when she went back inside. Lorraine's voice hummed behind the guest room door, Evelyn's door, talking on speakerphone. Kyle's footsteps moved overhead. Coffee brewed. In the kitchen, Monica stood in her lemon-printed robe, plating scrambled eggs and avocado toast. She turned when she heard Evelyn enter. "Morning," she chirped. "Did you sleep okay?" Evelyn walked past her, opened the cupboard, and pulled down a ceramic mug, the one with her initials. She filled it with coffee, black. The bitterness bit her tongue the way she needed it to. "Oh, and Mom wants to stay until Thursday now," Monica added. "Hope that's not a problem. You're such a trooper about all this." Evelyn turned. Her face was unreadable. She reached into her cardigan pocket and placed a thick sealed envelope on the kitchen table between the avocado toast and the linen napkins Monica had ironed for company. "What's this?" Monica asked, half laughing. Evelyn just smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Something I've been meaning to deliver," she said. That morning, Evelyn hand-delivers a sealed envelope to Monica at breakfast. She thought the table was hers. I laid my documents across it. The butter knife clinked against porcelain as Monica sliced into her sourdough toast, laughing at something her mother had said from the end of the table. Sunlight poured through the bay windows, bouncing off the spotless marble countertops Monica had insisted on during renovation, partly funded by Evelyn. Evelyn stood in the kitchen doorway, quiet and deliberate, the morning light catching the edge of the envelope still clutched in her hand. "I've got something for you," she said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that felt like the still air before a tornado siren. Monica glanced over, mouth full of toast. Oh, sure. Can it wait? We're in the middle of breakfast." "No," Evelyn said. She stepped forward and placed the envelope directly onto the center of the table, between the bowl of berries and the silver napkin rings. "It won't take long." The room froze for half a beat. Monica wiped her hands on a cloth napkin, glancing warily at Kyle, who sat silently nursing a lukewarm coffee. Lorraine continued stirring her yogurt as if nothing was amiss. Monica pulled the envelope toward her with 2 fingers, unimpressed. "Is this another request for closet space?" Evelyn didn't answer. She just stepped back and folded her arms. Monica tore the seal with dramatic flair. She read the first line and smirked. But the smirk faltered halfway through the second paragraph. Her eyes narrowed. The stamped letterhead from Evelyn's attorney stared back at her in formal, bold ink. "Legal notification, 30% property ownership, standing to file for partition or occupancy rights. Notice of intention to formalize a property division if informal agreement could not be reached." "You had this drafted by a lawyer?" Monica said slowly, blinking. "Yes," Evelyn replied. "Weeks ago." Monica scoffed, tossing the first page onto the table. "This doesn't mean anything. You paid into a remodel. That doesn't give you—" "I didn't pay into the remodel," Evelyn interrupted, her voice steel. "I paid into the mortgage, $85,000 into the foundation of this home. My name is on the deed. That document confirms my right to request financial separation or formal property sale. Kyle leaned forward and picked up the paper with trembling hands. His eyes scanned quickly, lips moving without sound. He swallowed hard. "Mom," he said quietly, looking at Evelyn, "is this real?" Evelyn turned to him, not with malice, but with finality. "I asked you both to include me in the cohabitation paperwork. I asked for transparency. Instead, I got cropped out of family photos and assigned to an air mattress." Monica's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked cornered. Her fingers tapped anxiously against the table. "You're bluffing," she said, reaching for her phone. "This isn't enforceable. We're a family. You'd have to be a monster to go through with something like this." Evelyn didn't flinch. She leaned forward, resting her fingertips gently on the edge of the table. "Try me." The silence that followed was different from before. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't stunned. It was controlled, held together by Evelyn's presence, as if she had finally stepped into her rightful shape and the house had adjusted around it. Kyle folded the letter back along its creases, his hands visibly shaking. He didn't speak. Lorraine finally raised her eyes from her yogurt. "Well," she muttered, "that's one way to start a morning." Monica stood abruptly, pushing her chair back with a loud scrape. "This is ridiculous. You think you're going to walk in here and threaten legal action just because you didn't get a guest room for a few nights? You want to blow up this family over a mattress?" "No," Evelyn replied, slowly pulling out her own chair. "You blew it up. I'm just serving the receipts." Monica says, "She's bluffing." Evelyn replies, "Try me." She tried to intimidate me with silence. I let my attorney speak louder. The first silence wasn't peaceful, it was tactical. Evelyn noticed it before she even reached the kitchen. The air had a different weight to it, the kind that made footsteps sound louder and the hum of the refrigerator feel like a statement. No "good morning." No clink of coffee mugs offered her way. Monica moved like a stagehand backstage, present, necessary, but unseen. Evelyn calmly buttered her toast. She could feel Monica watching her from the hallway mirror's reflection, arms crossed, face unreadable. Evelyn didn't flinch. Instead, she took a measured bite and opened the newspaper. Real paper, not digital. Nothing rushed, nothing rattled. By that afternoon, Kyle hovered in the doorway to Evelyn's sitting room, his shoulders hunched like a child caught between two arguing parents. "Mom?" he started. "Can we just talk for a minute? All of us?" Evelyn didn't look up from her knitting. "You're welcome to speak, but if this is about the letter, you'll need to call Sheila." Kyle frowned. "Come on. Lawyers? Really?" "She's very good," Evelyn replied, slipping the needle through the next loop. "And punctual." The second day was colder. Monica didn't make dinner, didn't ask if Evelyn wanted to order anything. Kyle brought home takeout for himself and his wife. Evelyn cooked her own lentils and rice, plated them with care, and ate on the back patio as the sun dipped behind the shed. That night, the lights in the kitchen were left off when Evelyn walked in. Intentional, but Evelyn simply flicked them on, as if nothing was amiss. The third day, the house became a game of avoidance. Monica left the room when Evelyn entered. She slammed a few drawers in the laundry area, took phone calls on speaker just loud enough for Evelyn to hear her exhale dramatically every few minutes. But Evelyn? She stayed steady. She sat in her room and labeled folders: deed, utilities, texts, witnesses. Her voice memo recordings were organized chronologically now. Every receipt had been scanned twice. By mid-afternoon, Evelyn heard Monica's voice sharp and shrill through the thin drywall of the guest hallway. "I don't care what the letter says, she's not staying here forever." Pause. A quieter voice. Monica's mother. "Honey, you should have handled this before it got legal. She's got documentation now, the kind you don't fight in court." Monica snapped. "We'll find a place, one of those retirement villages. They have memory care too." Her voice dropped, just enough to signal insult. "She's sweet," Monica added, "but she's not all there anymore." Evelyn closed the file cabinet and stood still for a moment. The tick of the antique clock in the hallway filled the space between her heartbeat and her next move. She walked to the door, opened it just slightly, not enough to be obvious. Then, with the softest smile, she whispered to no one in particular, "Not all there?" She turned back toward her bed, pulled the wool throw over her legs, and reached for her tea. Sheila had said this would come. "Silence is just strategy," her lawyer had told her on their last call. "They'll either try to freeze you out or blow the house down. Don't meet them at either end, just keep documenting." The warmth from the cup spread through her hands. She sipped once, slowly. Outside the room, Monica's voice continued, muted but filled with panic. She was still trying to control the narrative, still underestimating Evelyn's patience, her silence, her calm. But what Monica hadn't yet learned was this: the quietest person in the room often holds the loudest leverage. Evelyn stood, opened her closet drawer, and added one more label to the folder stack. Plan B? Assisted living for them? Then she smiled. She made cranberry sauce, I served legal filings. The turkey was dry, but the tension was worse. Evelyn sat at the far end of the table, placed just barely within earshot but far enough away that she'd have to strain to insert herself into conversation. Monica had set the table with Pinterest precision: gold-rimmed chargers, autumn-themed napkin rings, place cards handwritten in faux calligraphy. Evelyn's card simply read, Evelyn. Not Mom, not Grandma, just a first name like a neighbor who'd wandered in by mistake. The centerpiece was a mess of pumpkins and eucalyptus that blocked her view of Kyle entirely, but she didn't need a clear line of sight to know when he smiled on cue or when Monica pressed her hand to his knee under the table. She'd memorized those movements a long time ago, back when her opinion still mattered and her place at the table wasn't decorative. "So tell us," Monica's cousin Gina said, raising her glass, "how did you two manage this beautiful home in this market?" Her earrings sparkled. So did her tone, sweet, curious, laced with just enough venom. Monica didn't miss a beat. "Well, it's been years of hard work, lots of sacrifice. We've really poured ourselves into this place. It's ours in every way." Kyle shifted slightly, but didn't correct her. Evelyn's fork hovered above her plate. She'd bought the appliances in this very kitchen. She'd co-signed the down payment. Her name was on the deed, but not on Monica's story. Monica went on, "It wasn't always easy, but you know how it is. Some people help, some people just occupy space." The words were delivered with such grace it almost passed as humor. Laughter sparkled around the table. Someone passed the cranberry sauce. Evelyn took her time spreading butter across her roll. Her hands didn't shake. She looked up once, slowly, met Monica's eyes from across the harvest centerpiece, and gave her a smile. Small, civil, surgical. The meal trudged on. Stuffing, green beans, a long-winded anecdote from Monica's uncle about retirement planning. Through it all, Evelyn listened like a woman counting steps before detonation. Then came the toast. Monica stood, her wine glass raised high. "To gratitude," she said, "for health, for family, for this home we built, together." She said it like punctuation, like a headline. Evelyn waited until the clinking of glasses started to fade before she pushed back her chair an inch, stood slowly, and lifted her own glass of water. Her voice was soft, but it cut through the chatter like a scalpel. "And let's not forget," she said, "to be grateful for the silent investors, the ones who helped build this home but didn't ask for credit. Just honesty." The table went still. Someone's fork clinked against a plate. Monica's lips parted, but no sound came out. Evelyn sat back down. No one raised another toast. That night, Evelyn sat by the window with a folder on her lap, lit only by the lamp Tom had rewired back in 1998. She flipped through the contents slowly, scanned bank transfers, notarized letters, the signed agreement from the closing date that included her contribution amount in black ink. Her tea had gone cold. She didn't care. She tapped once on her phone and pulled up Sheila's contact. No emojis, no chit-chat, just one sentence. "File the motion first thing in the morning. I'll sign it by 8 a.m. She hit send. The next day, the house was quiet. The kitchen still smelled like leftover sage and onions. Monica was upstairs, likely editing her Instagram story to crop Evelyn from the family photo. Kyle had left early, claiming he needed to check in on a project. Evelyn sat at the dining table, same one as the night before, and opened her laptop. The file was already there. Motion to partition, joint property ownership dispute. Her cursor hovered above the signature line. She clicked. E-signed, dated, confirmed. She didn't celebrate. She didn't even exhale. She simply stood, closed her laptop, and looked at the empty headchair Monica had claimed the night before. The court clerk confirms receipt. Partition case number assigned. Monica receives the notice by certified mail at 3:11 p.m. Respect wasn't requested, it was legally required. The envelope arrived like any other. Unassuming, white, slightly thicker than junk mail, but it hit the granite countertop like a gavel. Monica barely glanced at it before slicing it open with the paring knife she'd been using for strawberries. Her nails were painted nude, her playlist was still humming Norah Jones in the background, and her expression stayed smug for the first few lines. Then her brow tightened, her lips pressed together, and her fingers paused mid-fold. From the living room, Evelyn heard it. A sharp inhale, then the unmistakable sound of paper crinkling under too much pressure. "Kyle!" Monica shouted. "You need to see this." He came downstairs slowly, dragging his hand along the banister. He was still in work clothes, business casual khakis, a wrinkled shirt with a logo from a solar company Evelyn couldn't remember the name of. She watched from her recliner, arms folded, her face unreadable. Monica handed him the letter like it was a live wire. He scanned the lines, mouth slackening with each paragraph. Partition? Evelyn's filing for property partition? Evelyn tilted her head slightly. "That's correct," she said calmly, "per my rights as a co-owner." Kyle looked at her like she'd just spoken a foreign language. "Mom, come on, this is going to make things worse." "For who?" she asked softly. Monica slammed the counter with the back of her hand. "What kind of person drops this during the holidays? You could have come to us, talked like adults." "I did," Evelyn said, "for 2 years." Kyle held up the letter again. "You really want to force a sale? You want to kick your own son out of his house?" Evelyn stood slowly, her spine straight as she walked to the credenza drawer. From it, she pulled out a neatly sealed manila envelope and slid it across the counter. It stopped inches from Monica's untouched wine glass. "What's this?" Monica asked, suspicious. "A copy of the cohabitation agreement," Evelyn said, "signed by both of you in 2019. It outlines my financial contribution, my residential rights, and the joint ownership agreement you both insisted was just a formality." Her voice was low, deliberate. "Well, it's formal now." Monica didn't open the envelope. She backed away like it might burn her fingers. Kyle looked torn, his eyes bouncing between the paper, his wife, and his mother. "This feels extreme." Evelyn's voice didn't rise. "What feels extreme is being erased from a home I helped purchase. What feels extreme is being treated like a squatter while my name sits on the deed." The room fell into silence. Outside, wind brushed against the kitchen window. A tree branch tapped faintly against the glass. Inside, the tension tightened like air in a sealed jar. Then Monica moved. She grabbed her wine glass with one hand and hurled it into the sink. It exploded with a crash, red droplets splashing onto the backsplash and her ivory blouse. "She's destroying our family!" she screamed, voice ragged and trembling. "You're letting her ruin everything we've built!" Evelyn didn't flinch. Kyle stepped forward, reaching instinctively for Monica's arm, but she jerked away. "Don't touch me!" she spat. "You said she wouldn't do this." He looked helpless. "I didn't know she was serious." Evelyn turned toward the hallway. "I've always been serious. You just mistook my silence for surrender." She walked out, her footsteps echoing against the hardwood floors. In her room, she opened her laptop and logged the event into her legal file. Timestamp, description, names, incident, verbal outburst, confirmed property dispute acknowledged. She hits print on her final draft for court, Monica's scream still ringing faintly behind the closed door. "She mocked me in front of her friends. I told the truth to thousands." The last thing Evelyn expected to come from her carefully filed legal paperwork was an invitation to speak on a podcast. But the subject line, "Seeking guests for episode When Family Uses You," hit a nerve too deep to ignore. She read the email 3 times. The producer's words were respectful, direct. "We're interviewing women over 60 who've experienced housing or financial control by family. You may remain anonymous. No names, no faces, just truth." Evelyn stared at the screen, her tea growing cold beside her. Her mouse hovered over the trash icon, then veered toward reply. 2 weeks later, she sat in a quiet room at the downtown library, headphones on, a mic in front of her, and a young woman named Alex smiling at her with soft reassurance from across the table. "No pressure," Alex said. "You can stop at any time." Evelyn offered a small nod, heart thudding just beneath her collarbone. "I won't need to." The recording light blinked red. "Tell me how it started," Alex prompted gently. Evelyn's voice was calm, almost clinical. "It started with gratitude. I gave my son and his wife $85,000 to buy their first home. They called it a blessing." She exhaled slowly. That blessing became leverage. Her story unfolded like quiet thunder. She spoke not as a victim, but as a woman detailing a map, each turn documented, each betrayal etched with receipts. The air in the room shifted as Evelyn described the linen closet that no longer held her towels, the room she was evicted from to make space for Monica's mother, the way laughter followed every cutting remark about her memory. She kept names out of it, but the timeline, the dollar amount, the property split, they were crystal clear. When she paused, Alex looked at her with wide eyes. "You don't sound bitter. You sound precise." "I've had time to sharpen the language," Evelyn replied, brushing an invisible crumb from her sleeve. "Silence made it easier for them to write over me. I won't give them that silence anymore." The episode aired a week later under the title, "The Down Payment That Came with a Muzzle." It didn't take long for the local buzz to start. A friend from Evelyn's book club texted her the link saying, "Is this you? It sounds like you." A neighbor she barely knew sent an email that read, "I cried." "Thank you." Evelyn didn't respond to any of them. She just listened to the episode once, alone, with a mug of chamomile, and let the sound of her own voice settle in her ears like a second spine. It was strange hearing herself like that, stronger than she'd expected, but the real twist came the next Sunday, right after morning service, when Evelyn stopped to pick up her purse from the pew and found a folded note tucked underneath it. Inside, written in elegant cursive, was one line. "You should know. Monica's mother heard the episode. I sent it to her." No signature, just the scent of lavender from the stationery. Evelyn blinked once, twice. She looked around the sanctuary, but no one was watching her. Not openly, anyway. That afternoon, Monica's mother, Dolores, called, for the first time in years. "Evelyn," she said, voice crisp but uncertain, "I don't want to get in the middle, but I heard the interview." Evelyn waited. There was a pause. Then, "I didn't know she treated you like that. I wish I'd known." "She didn't want you to," Evelyn replied evenly. "Now you do." Dolores sighed. "If you ever want to talk, woman to woman, I'd listen." Evelyn didn't accept, but she didn't hang up either. That night, Monica slammed a drawer so hard the silverware rattled. Kyle paced the kitchen. "She's ruining our reputation," Monica hissed. "Everyone knows it's us. She didn't even say our names, and they still know." "She didn't have to," Kyle muttered. "They've seen it." Monica stormed off, and Kyle stared at the refrigerator like it held answers. Evelyn, from her room, sipped her tea and watched the motion detector's soft blue glow flicker on her security monitor. No names, no revenge, just facts. Public now. Permanent. The next morning, Evelyn finds a new voicemail. It's Monica's mother again. But this time, her tone is different. "I think we need to talk, before Monica makes this worse for herself." Her brand was grace and charity. I became the footnote she couldn't control. The first sign came at the Wednesday market, tucked between the smell of fresh basil and the rattle of wicker baskets. Evelyn was reaching for a jar of blackberry jam when a voice beside her whispered, "You were right to stand up for yourself." She turned slowly. Marlene, one of Monica's Pilates friends, the type who always smiled wide but blinked too little, was standing there, clutching a bag of arugula like a shield. "I'm sorry?" Evelyn said, keeping her tone neutral. Marlene leaned in closer, lowering her sunglasses. The podcast. You didn't name names, but anyone who's been around long enough knows the cast. Evelyn's grip on the jam jar tightened, then relaxed. I didn't do it for recognition. Marlene gave a quick, humorless smile. You didn't need to. It was brave. And overdue. Then she stepped away, disappearing between the citrus crates like smoke. By Friday, the ripple had reached the community Facebook group. A thread titled, Elder Financial Abuse. Have you seen this episode? Had over 100 comments. Some were vague, others veiled, but enough were specific. Sounds like that family near the preserve subdivision. Didn't they say she helped fund their home? Shameful. Evelyn didn't comment. She didn't even like the post, but she read every word. Twice. At church that Sunday, 2 women from the Women's Ministry Committee approached her at the coffee table. One of them, Annette, touched her wrist gently and said, If you ever want help reviewing your legal options again, let me know. My sister's a paralegal. Evelyn blinked. Thank you. I think I'm covered. Still, the tone had changed. Whispers no longer swirled around her like shame. Now they swirled around Monica. At the next HOA meeting, Evelyn sat in her usual spot, 2 rows from the front, notebook balanced in her lap. Monica walked in 10 minutes late, high heels clacking across the tile louder than necessary. She wore her usual polished smile, but her movements were sharper, clipped, like a woman moving through fog with a knife drawn. When someone brought up the topic of responsible shared property planning, Monica visibly stiffened. She raised her hand. Not everyone appreciates having their family business turned into public fodder. No one responded. After the meeting, Evelyn walked toward her car only to find Susan, a fellow garden club member, trailing her with cautious steps. I know this might be awkward, Susan began, but some of us, well, we just didn't realize how long you'd been living with Kyle and Monica. Long enough to help build the foundation, Evelyn said softly. Susan nodded, her voice dropping. You were generous. Too generous, maybe. That night, Evelyn sat in her chair by the window, a quiet cup of chamomile in her hands. Outside, the wind stirred the leaves along the curb. Her phone buzzed on the armrest, a notification from Instagram. She opened it. Monica Grace Living posted a new story. It was a muted photo of her dining table, candles, plates. The caption, written in off-white script over a filtered image, read, Some people betray their own family. It won't end well. No names, no tags, just venom, diffused in digital lace. Evelyn stared at it, unmoving. She didn't screenshot it. She didn't reply. Instead, she reached for her small legal notebook, opened a fresh page, and wrote the date. Then, in small, precise handwriting, she noted, Passive defamation attempt, documented, story posted, 10:44 p.m., screenshot retained in legal folder. She closed the notebook, set it on the nightstand, and turned off the lamp. Monica was beginning to unravel, and Evelyn had just sharpened her pen for what came next. He was raised better, but weakness is generational. Kyle didn't knock. He just stood in the frame of the open doorway, shoulders slumped, lips tight, hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets like he'd rehearsed being smaller than he was. Evelyn looked up from her crossword, the one she did every morning in pen. She didn't move, just flipped the page without looking at him. You look like someone who lost something he thought he owned. He let out a quiet breath and stepped into the kitchen. Mom, can we talk? She motioned toward the chair across from her without speaking. The kitchen smelled like brewed chicory and warm toast. The silence stretched as he sat down and traced the rim of the mug she'd set earlier, one that said, World's Okayest Son. She hadn't poured him coffee. Not yet. I don't know what to do, he finally said, his voice a notch above whisper. No, Evelyn said, folding her hands on the table. You just don't like the consequences of what you already did. His eyes glistened. I didn't mean for it to get this far. Evelyn's tone didn't rise, didn't tremble. But you let it. You stood next to a woman who erased me room by room and laughed at her timing. Kyle swallowed hard. Monica was she was angry. She felt like you were making moves behind our backs. I was, Evelyn said. Because I finally had to. He blinked. But why not come to me first? Why not tell me you felt pushed out? I did, she said evenly. I told you when she removed my bookshelves, when she gave my room to her mother, when I got the air mattress downstairs like a forgotten niece at a holiday gathering. Kyle dropped his gaze. You nodded, she continued, and said, it's just temporary. And I started counting the ways you made me temporary. The chair creaked as Kyle leaned forward. I never wanted you to feel like that. You helped us get that house. We were grateful. Gratitude without respect is decoration, she said. Pretty, but hollow. The silence grew heavier. Outside, wind stirred the brittle leaves in the gutter. Evelyn glanced toward the window, then back at him. You didn't speak up when it mattered. Now I have to speak legally. Kyle wiped his eyes with the sleeve of his jacket. I'm stuck in the middle, Mom. I love you. I love her. I didn't want a war. Evelyn's stare hardened. You're not in the middle, Kyle. You're in the middle of losing both women because you kept pretending neutrality was noble. He looked like he'd been slapped. I didn't raise you to be passive, she said. Your father didn't teach you to fold when things got uncomfortable. But here we are. Kyle's voice broke. What do you want from me? Evelyn stood. Her steps were quiet, measured. She walked to the drawer beneath the microwave and pulled out a sealed envelope. She placed it on the table between them. 2 choices. He stared at it like it might explode. You buy me out legally, she said. At fair market value. No discounts, no emotional pleading. Kyle's lip trembled. And if we can't? She stepped back, folded her arms. Then the house goes on the market. Partition sale. Court-ordered. I'll walk away clean. You'll walk away with whatever Monica's pride doesn't burn. He opened the envelope with shaking fingers. The legal summary inside was clean, direct, bad manners and throw pillows. Monica slammed her hand on the table. You're tearing this family apart. Evelyn stood. She didn't raise her voice. No, Monica, you tore it apart the day you decided kindness meant silence. A thick envelope slid across the table. Evelyn's motion was effortless. Monica didn't touch it. What is this now? She snapped. The petition for partition, Evelyn said. Filed this morning. My lawyer's name is at the top. Your deadline is in bold. Kyle picked it up and scanned the top. His jaw dropped. You actually filed it? Evelyn turned to him. I gave you a chance to make this clean. I handed you an option. Monica made her position clear when she called it blackmail. Monica was already pacing. You'll never win. You think judges like listening to family fights? You'll look spiteful, petty. No, Evelyn said. I'll look like a woman who finally got tired of being erased by her own blood. The grandfather clock ticked behind them like a slow drumbeat. No one moved. Then Kyle spoke again, softly. What happens now? Evelyn's answer came with the practiced calm of someone who'd already lived through it in her head 100 times. The court will give us 30 days to reach a private agreement. If that fails, the house goes on the market. Public listing, legal sale. We split the proceeds based on the deed. And if we fight it? Monica said. Evelyn's eyes didn't flinch. Then you lose more than money. You lose time, reputation, and you lose me, fully. The room was quiet for a beat too long. The radiator hissed, pipes clanking behind the drywall like an old home protesting its secrets. Monica finally grabbed the envelope and tore it open. Her eyes raced down the page, red creeping into her face as if the ink itself were an insult. This is war. Evelyn tilted her head. Number this is the peace you refused when I tried grace. Kyle opened his mouth again but couldn't find words. He just stood there, a man torn between 2 storms, neither of which wanted him for shelter. Evelyn moved to leave. She picked up her coat from the hook by the door, then looked back one last time. I asked for a seat at your table. You gave me a cushion on the floor. So now, I'll sit in the courthouse instead. 3 days later, an official letter arrived by certified mail. Unless a settlement is reached within 30 calendar days, the property will be listed for court-supervised sale. Monica dropped it on the kitchen floor. Kyle just stared. Evelyn, in her quiet cottage down the road, smiled over her morning coffee. She cleared the pantry. I cleared the deed. The first thing Evelyn noticed when she opened the door was the silence. Too quiet, even for a weekday afternoon. No pot clanking in the kitchen. No television hum. No Monica humming off-key as she multitasked over her phone. She stepped inside, pausing in the doorway, and then smelled it. Faint bleach and lavender plug-ins, the scent of erasure disguised as cleanliness. Her heels clicked softly against the hardwood as she walked to the guest suite. The door was wide open. The bed was stripped bare, sheets gone, dresser drawers emptied, the lamp on the nightstand unplugged and tilted slightly to the side. The small bookshelf that used to hold Evelyn's cookbooks and framed photos now stood hollow, a single dust ring marking where her wedding picture used to sit. Monica had packed it all, without a word, without a warning. Evelyn didn't gasp or curse. She stood there for a long moment, scanning the now sterile room with tired, knowing eyes. She opened the closet. Empty hangers dangled like broken promises. Downstairs, the refrigerator light flicked on as she opened it. Gone were her yogurts, her herbal teas, her leftover chicken salad. Only almond milk, diet sodas, and Monica's energy drinks remained. Even the spice rack had been curated. Her old glass jars of turmeric, cinnamon, and bay leaves gone. In their place stood matching labeled tins, sleek and impersonal. Evelyn smiled. It wasn't a smile of defeat. It was the kind that curled slowly, the kind that came when finality settled into your bones like warm coffee on a cold morning. She walked into the living room, set her purse down quietly, and pulled out her phone. A single tap opened her banking app, then another opened the utility provider's login. With the precision of a woman who had planned this for weeks, Evelyn removed her name from the electric bill, then the water, then the Wi-Fi. She forwarded final statements to her attorney, subject line, confirmed, all accounts separated. By the time Kyle returned from work, Evelyn was sitting on the patio with a cup of mint tea and a light breeze brushing against her face. He stepped outside, hesitant. "Did you see the room?" "I saw it," she replied without looking up. "I didn't know she was going to—" Evelyn raised a hand, gently. "You don't have to explain. She's made her position clear." Kyle ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. Just angry. She says this doesn't feel like a home anymore. Then maybe she should stop trying to exile the woman who helped buy it, Evelyn said calmly. She says you're making this house unlivable. I've barely spoken. I didn't strip anyone's room. I didn't clear out the pantry. She turned to look at him. But I did clear the deed, and the world's about to see it. What do you mean? Evelyn unlocked her phone again, opened her browser, and typed in the MLS listing site. "Check the new listing," she said, handing it to him. Kyle scrolled, and his face drained of color. There it was. For sale. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, colonial, co-owned property, listed by court-appointed referee. Ownership: Monica E. Taylor, Kyle Taylor, Evelyn M. Howard. He looked up, stunned. You put it live?" "No," Evelyn said. "The court did, today." A gust of wind rustled the hedge beside them. Kyle stared at the screen like it was a page from a book he never wanted to read. "There's still time," he said, eyes pleading. "We could settle it, quietly. You could move out, take a payout." Evelyn sipped her tea, unbothered. "I offered you quiet. Your wife weaponized silence instead." The screen in his hand dimmed, then blacked out. Across town, Monica stormed into her office, slammed her laptop shut, and screamed, "She made it public." In her inbox, unread, sat an email from Evelyn's lawyer. "Final date for private resolution, 12 days remaining." She mocked me once. I served her a closing statement. The invitation wasn't printed, it wasn't mailed. It came as a simple note, hand-delivered to Kyle's inbox with the subject line, "One more dinner, one more truth." Evelyn didn't need decoration to make it clear. This wasn't about reconciliation. It was about finality. The house felt quieter that evening, as if it, too, was preparing to exhale. The dining room lights were dimmed just enough to cast a warm glow over the polished oak table. Evelyn laid out the silver she'd received on her wedding day, never used in Monica's presence. Two place settings, no centerpieces, no pretense. A roast was in the oven, the scent of rosemary and lemon peeled through the air, grounding Evelyn as she moved through the kitchen with slow, intentional steps. She wore a navy blouse with pearl buttons and a pin that once belonged to her mother. Everything she did tonight would be chosen. No more defaulting to politeness. The doorbell rang at exactly 6:58 p.m. Evelyn opened it without delay. Kyle stood there alone. No Monica. His coat was draped over his arm, and his eyes looked tired, like someone bracing for a sentence they already knew was coming. "She said no," he murmured, stepping inside. "Didn't even ask what it was about." Evelyn nodded once. "Good." Kyle flinched slightly, but said nothing. At the table, the clink of silverware filled the silence between bites. The roast was perfect. Kyle complimented it, but Evelyn didn't respond. She passed the wine without looking up. Halfway through the meal, she pushed her plate slightly forward and reached beneath her chair. A single white envelope, thick and sealed. Kyle's eyes tracked it the moment it touched the table. She didn't push it toward him. She didn't have to. He knew it was his. "What is it?" he asked, though his fingers were already reaching for it. "My will," Evelyn replied, voice even. "Finalized, notarized, and filed." Kyle hesitated. You thought this was about the house," she cut in. "It isn't. It never was. This is about everything after." He looked at the envelope as though it might burn. "I had two options," she continued, folding her hands in her lap. "Leave you and Monica what I helped build, or leave someone a chance to build something without you tearing it down." Kyle's face twitched. "Who?" "My granddaughter," Evelyn said softly. "She's the only one who ever asked how I was doing without needing something in return." Silence folded itself around the table like another guest. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," he said finally, voice tight. "I just thought we were figuring it out." "You stood beside her," Evelyn said, her tone sharper now, "while she moved my furniture, joked about memory loss, and called me a guest in the house I helped pay for. You stayed quiet. I was trying to keep peace." "No," Evelyn said, standing now. "You were trying to keep Monica happy, and peace was the cost." She walked to the kitchen, retrieved a linen napkin, and placed it gently on top of the envelope. "You don't need to read it now. Just understand one thing. It's done, not out of revenge. Out of relief." Kyle stood slowly, holding the envelope with both hands. He looked like he wanted to say something more, to negotiate the moment into something softer, but there was no space left for that. As he reached the front door, he turned one last time. "Is there anything you want me to tell her?" he asked. Evelyn thought for a long beat. Then, "Tell her, thank you." Her arrogance made this decision easy. Kyle left without another word. The door clicked shut. Evelyn turned off the dining room lights. The roast sat untouched on one side of the table. The napkin still covered the plate where Monica had never arrived. She poured herself a glass of water and stood by the window, watching Kyle's car disappear. In the distance, the for sale sign finally arrived, its post hammered straight into Monica's flower bed. "They called me a burden. I turned into a boundary." The front porch smelled faintly of cedar and lavender. A small brass sign read, "Welcome to Oak Haven." Evelyn stood in the sunlight, one hand still resting on the worn wood railing, the other clutching the keys that no one had handed her. She had earned them. The air was crisp, early spring. Her breath came easy. For the first time in years, she wasn't holding it in. The cottage wasn't grand, but it was hers, or at least hers in the way that mattered. Co-owned through a partnership with a senior women's advocacy foundation, the place symbolized something far greater than square footage. It stood for agency, choice, dignity, words that had once been whispered behind her back like accusations. Now they were etched into the rhythm of her every step. Inside, sunlight filtered through sheer cream curtains and warmed the hardwood floor. The fireplace, trimmed in antique brick, waited patiently beneath a cherry wood mantel. Evelyn stepped into the living room and took a deep breath. Fresh paint still lingered in the air, mingled with the subtle scent of sandalwood from the single candle burning in the corner. Peace, at last, had a smell. She opened one of the final moving boxes, reached inside, and pulled out a plain black frame. Inside it, the attorney letter. Sealed, certified, and undefeated. The paper wasn't just legal, it was sacred. A declaration that she hadn't just walked away. She'd walked through. Evelyn hung it beside the fireplace, straightened it with care, and stepped back. For a long moment, she stared at it in silence. "They said I was clinging," she whispered. "Turns out, I was anchoring." The kitchen was modest but bright, with mint green cabinets and a retro-style fridge that hummed like it remembered better days. A loaf of fresh bread rested on the counter, a gift from the neighbor across the courtyard, a retired librarian who baked as a kind of daily meditation. Evelyn sliced into it slowly, letting the crust crackle beneath the knife, then buttered a piece and sat at the table. A different table. Her table. Not one she had to earn her place at. Not one where she needed to be useful, quiet, or small to be tolerated. Later that day, a few of the women from the co-op came by. Someone brought daffodils in a mason jar. Someone else dropped off a flyer for the next community workshop. Evelyn offered them coffee. No one asked what she'd left behind. They asked only what she wanted to build next. "I might teach a workshop," she told them, "on boundaries and real estate." Laughter filled the kitchen, gentle, knowing, and rich. That night, Evelyn sat in the backyard under soft string lights, sipping tea while her cat, newly adopted, watched birds from the windowsill. In her lap sat a letter she'd written to her granddaughter. She hadn't mailed it yet, but the words had come with ease. "You watched quietly. You listened loudly. You reminded me I still mattered, before the court said so. That's the kind of strength that changes generations, sweetheart. So here's what I'll leave you. Not a house, not an obligation, but a map of how I found my way back to myself. Use it how you need to, or build your own." The letter would go out tomorrow, along with a thank you card to her attorney and a small donation to the podcast that had opened a door when the family slammed every other one shut. The moon climbed higher, casting silver across the lawn. Evelyn stood, stretched, and walked back inside. She passed the fireplace again and looked once more at the framed letter. Not out of bitterness, but out of balance. She had carried the weight of silence, of ridicule, of exclusion. Now she carried only clarity. She placed her journal back on the shelf, double-checked the lock on her door, turned down the lights. In the stillness, a final thought whispered through her mind. Not angry, not aching, just true. "I used to ask for a seat at the table, now I build the table and decide who eats."